The world is changing. It's likely that in our lifetimes we'll see the extinction of petroleum-powered vehicles in a bid to reduce our carbon footprint. The world is changing, but not everyone is ready to accept it.
When you're buying a new mobile phone, what are the things that are important? Is it image, is it apps, is it functionality, data usage, or even price? But one of the things that you never actually ask is, how many minutes of use am I going to get from the time that I turn this on to the time that the battery dies? And that's because it's completely irrelevant, isn't it? The way that you use a phone is different than the way that I use a phone, and there are charge points everywhere, meaning you never have to worry about battery life. It's irrelevant. And I think the same is true when you're purchasing a motorcycle. So what are the considerations? What it looks like, how it rides, how much it costs, and maybe from a running perspective, what MPG you're going to get. But at no point do you ever sit in front of a salesman and say, from the time that I fill this up to the time that the tank is completely empty and I run it out the side of the road, how many miles will I get? It's irrelevant, because you would just pull in and fill up with fuel, and the way that you ride is different than the way that I ride, meaning that you would get further, I wouldn't get as far. It's just completely irrelevant. And so today we're not going to be talking about range. Instead, what we're going to talk about is whether or not an electric motorcycle can hold its own against the more established petrol-powered sports tourers.
And so let me introduce you to the Zero SRS. It's a fully electric sports tourer which is going to find itself going up against the likes of Kawasaki's Z1000 SX, the UK's market leader in this segment. The SRS is based on the same platform as its naked cousin, the SRF, with a redeveloped subframe to accommodate pillion and luggage. Its belt-driven electric motor puts out 120 brake horsepower and 140 foot-pounds of torque, which needs to be controlled by Bosch's latest software. This bike is also fitted with Xero's optional charge tank, taking the Type 2 charge to 100% in just 40 minutes, or 4 to 5 hours from a conventional home plug socket.
Here we are, we've had to stop at the services to find a Type 2 charger. Now the reason we're going for a Type 2 charger is because we've actually got the charge tank option on this bike, which allows it to charge in about 40 minutes from 0 to 100%, which is phenomenally quick. The other option is the power tank, which gives you additional range, and as far as I can tell you can't have both. So we've had to download the app and prepay. We're all plugged in and we'll just see how long it takes.
Like most bikes, the SRS has switchable maps that alter the bike's performance, and so we test out the eco function whilst munching some motorway miles. For a tourer, the screen is a little bit low with no adjustment available, though I expect there will be an aftermarket remedy for this. The riding position is really comfy on longer journeys, and I love the option of the 3-stage heated grips and cruise control. With no clutch or gear changes to worry about, the SRS is incredibly smooth and relaxing to ride, and I could easily see this being a contender for anyone looking to eat up motorway miles. The key to longer trips for the SRS is definitely planning. There are various apps that you can download that will help you to do this, and the electrical infrastructure in the UK is improving daily, which is making electric vehicles far more plausible as an alternative to petrol. So what does it actually cost to run the SRS? Well, after a 70-mile ride, I charged the SRS using a conventional plug socket from home, taking it from 40 to 100%. It took just 3.5 hours, and then I measured the energy cost using my smart meter. At a cost of about 98p an hour, the full charge only cost me £3.43. Now, by comparison, by today's petrol prices at about £1.14 a litre, averaging about 40 mpg, the same trip in a petrol-powered bike would have cost £9.09. Now imagine covering 6,000 miles a year and a running cost in a petrol bike of about £779 versus just £294 with the SRS. And that's not all. Electric motorcycles require far less mechanical maintenance and attract about £1,500 from the government as a subsidy. So my guess is that the premium you pay for an electric bike would actually pay back in about 3 years with enough use. So, should you buy a Zero SRS? Well, both the SRS and the SRF should be considerations for anyone using their bike for commuting and weekend pleasure riding. The SRS is definitely a contender in the sports tourer market, but I can't help but feel that it lacks things like an adjustable screen and bolder styling. It would also be great to see an integrated sat-nav, though you can plug in using the onboard USB chargers, which is a really nice touch. The build quality of the SRS is absolutely fantastic, and buyers have the assurance of a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty. If you're planning the odd domestic trip, then the SRS definitely works, and it's only let down in Europe by the infrastructure. Personally, I'd recommend riding this bike for anyone on the fence about electric, and I'd also recommend a visit to the English Electric Motor Company in Suffolk for some sound advice. The world is changing. Are you ready?